Dear Rabbi and Mrs. Bak, since their early days, you have served and served well as Rabbi and Rav of Shomrei Emunah. You joined our young congregation in May 1972 and helped us grow from a small minyan into one of the foremost Orthodox congregations in the United States today. You taught us, you counseled us, you rejoiced with us. You encouraged us to assume our proper role in the community. You were visionaries who, through your own life experiences, could see which road was the correct one for Shomrei Emunah. You consistently have symbolized shalom. You conducted yourselves with dignity and embraced us with your warmth. Through the sweet times and the bittersweet times, we thank you for sharing yourselves with us and enriching our lives. Tonight, as a tribute to you, we would like to reflect with you upon your lives as individuals, as a couple, and as Rabbi and Rebbitzin, two individuals who have had a profound impact on the American Orthodox community.
Rabbi Benjamin Bak was born in 1920 in Taragin, Lithuania, an idyllic lakeside shtetl with about 80 Jewish families. He was the third son of Herzl and Henny Bak. His father and father's father were prosperous merchants and manufacturers who employed most of the Jews of the community. His great-grandparents had imbued the family with a love of Torah and Zion, which has continued through the generations. From the age of 5 years to 10 years, little Binyamin was enrolled in the town's cheder. When he was not occupied with his studies, he happily joined the other children in bicycling and ice skating.
Halfway around the globe in New York City, Muriel was born to Israel and Pearl Alexander. Pearl's parents, dairy farmers in Poland, invited Rebbeim to teach their sons. Israel was one of the teachers, and Pearl soon caught his eye. Leaving Poland, they came to the New World, where Mr. Alexander became a grocer, first in Brooklyn and then in the Bronx. An exceptionally dedicated man, he learned the Daf Yomi and completed the entire Babylonian Talmud many times. Muriel attended the Talmud Torah of Nulatz in Brooklyn and was graduated with friends she still maintains to this very day.
The youth Binyamin quickly was recognized as having a brilliant mind and stellar qualities, and from the age of 15 to 20 years, he attended the Telze Yeshiva, a world-renowned center of rabbinic learning. He received Smicha Yoreh Yoreh Yodin Yodin from the late Rav Elio Meir Bloch. Meanwhile, a young American student, Mordechai Gifter, came to learn at Telz and became Rabbi Bak's lifelong friend. Rabbi Gifter, presently the Rosh Yeshiva at Telz, was instrumental in Rabbi Bak's coming to America to Yeshiva University.
In 1940, his fellow students gathered to bid him adieu as he left for America. The winds of war and the tides of destruction swelled in Europe, and of this group of promising young yeshiva students, only 3 survived the Holocaust: Rabbi Bak, Rabbi Elazar Levi, and Rabbi Max Browdy. Never again would Jewish family life in Europe know the relative peace and richness that was exemplified by the Bak family. Taking with him only memories, dreams, and pictures of his dear ones, such as his brother and sister, he came all alone to the United States in 1940.
A few months after his arrival, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik recommended Rabbi Bak for his first rabbinic post, Rabbi for the Yomim Noroyim at Lake Pearl Manor, a kosher hotel in Massachusetts. Later, Rabbi Bak helped establish an early branch of Yeshiva University in Boston. Those early years in America were filled with intense Talmud Torah and with the pursuit of secular studies at Columbia University. They were filled with loneliness and with the blossoming of a romance that became a lifelong partnership. Muriel, who graduated from the prestigious Herzliya Hebrew Teachers College, and Rabbi Bak found a little time for an occasional outing.
In 1942, friends heralded their engagement in the Yiddish paper, Der Morgen Journal.
Mazal Tov. B'shem Histadrut Talmidei Yeshivat Rabbeinu Yitzchak Elchanan, Anu Sholchim Ochilenu Hachamim Ubechotenu Halavaviyim, L'chvod Harav HaGaon HaMetsuyan V'Hanaleh Bal Midot HaTrumiyot, Morenu Harav Benjamin Bak Shlita, L'Raglei Erusav Im Bat Gilo Habtula, Miriam Alexander Shatechya. Yehi Ratzon Sheyimalu Kol Mishalotav, L'Tova V'Yizkeh, L'Valot Yamim Mimim, Al Mvoy HaTorah V'Hayirah.
And on the 10th of Sivan, June 13th, 1943, they were married. The striking young couple established a bond that withstood the seasons, through the sunshine and through the clouds of life. They shared a total commitment to Torah and a thirst for learning and teaching that has never waned.
2 months later, they assumed their first positions at Congregation B'nai B'rith Jacob in Savannah, Georgia. Rabbi Bak as assistant rabbi and Mrs. Bak as director of the kindergarten. During their first years as newlyweds, they not only were busy with their congregational duties, but frequently had soldiers as guests for Shabbos and Yom Tov from nearby Fort Benning. In the summer of 1944, their Bachor, Pinchas zt'l, was born.
The young rabbi expanded his skills and soon was ready to assume a pulpit of his own. In 1944, he was chosen from a field of 25 candidates to be the rabbi of Tifereth Israel of Forest Park in Baltimore, Maryland. His clarity of Yiddish may have won him the position, but his learning and teaching ability won over the congregation by the time the Shabbat Shuvah Drusha was completed. At Tifereth Israel, Rabbi Bak succeeded Rabbi Jacob Ruderman zt'l, who at the time needed to concentrate his full energies on the development of Ner Israel. Aside from his involvement with Tifereth Israel, Rabbi Bak assisted the Rosh Yeshiva in early fundraising efforts for the yeshiva.
During his 20 years at Tifereth Israel, Rabbi Bak gave a Talmud shiur to a group of about 30 regular attendees. He also became involved in every issue of the day, from helping Moses Spirit raise funds to outfit the ship Exodus, to accompanying the chief rabbi of Israel, Rav Unterman, when he called upon Governor McKeldin on behalf of Israel bonds. Rabbi Bak's early love and yearning for Zion decisively translated into action to help the fledgling Medinat Yisrael. In 1949, Tifereth Israel dedicated its new building in Forest Park. It was the first air-conditioned synagogue in Baltimore.
Throughout the years, Rabbi Bak became involved with many important contemporary issues, always interpreting them through a halachic perspective and urging the correct response through his weekly radio program, through his administrative work with the Rabbinical Council of America, through his extensive publications, or in the chambers of the Baltimore City Hall, where, for example, he argued against laws that would have banned vivisection. Congregational life had this grandeur. At Tifereth Israel's 25th anniversary, Alban Barkley, Vice President of the United States, was the featured speaker.
Rabbi, how did Vice President Barkley come to attend the shul dinner?
I went to Washington, to his office, and invited him.
During these years, Mrs. Bak found herself busy rearing the couple's 4 children: Pinchas, Yossi then, who was born in 1945, Herzl in 1951, and Henny in 1954. But Mrs. Bak always found time for community work as well, whether accompanying the sisterhood to Atlantic City for a meeting of the women's branch of the OU, or teaching Hebrew to a Hadassah group in her own home.
Perhaps the activity that gives the truest insight into Rabbi Bak's special character is his chaplaincy of the state hospitals. In the 1950s, when he became aware of Jewish patients in these institutions, he began quietly and privately to visit them. Seeing the scope of the need, he interested the Hebrew noble ladies in assisting him in weekly visits and religious services. Functioning as a volunteer for 10 years, he approached Governor McKeldin, who then, in recognizing the need, made the chaplaincy an official position, with Rabbi Bak serving until his retirement in 1987. He brought comfort, heightened self-esteem, and increased sense of belonging to the community for many patients. Whether making a bar mitzvah possible or in conducting model sidorim for hundreds of patients at Bluefeld's, Rabbi Bak's genuine concern for all segments of the Jewish community is evident. In his role as rabbinic consultant to the Jewish Family Service, he enabled many social workers to respond to their clients' needs within the framework of halacha.
The life of a rabbi and his family is never private. In 1957, Pinchas Bak became a bar mitzvah, and the family shared the simcha with the entire congregation. In 1959, in honor of 15 years of service, Tifereth Israel awarded the Baks a trip to Israel. The 2-week voyage and 3-month stay was the fulfillment of a dream to walk where the Nevi'im had walked. Some moments could be shared within the privacy of the walls of the family home. Havdalah, December 1960. Rabbinic duties at times required Rabbi Bak to travel. He officiated at a wedding in Boston with Rabbi J.B. Soloveitchik and the Bostoner Rebbe. Meanwhile, the rabbi's stature as a Talmid Chacham and Jewish community leader continued to grow. He also pursued his secular studies at the Johns Hopkins University and earned a master's degree.
As the years passed, their own children grew and married. Pinchas married Karen Steinman in 1965. Yossi married Marilyn Rosenbaum in 1966. Hertzie married Lolly Rothbein in 1970. And Henny married Moshe Friedman in 1973. Their first grandchild, David, was born to Pinchas and Karen in 1966. Mrs. Bak knit a beret and sweater for the baby and delivered it in person to them in Berkeley. By 1969, Yossi was introducing his daughter Naomi to the campus of Yeshiva University. In 1971, Mr. and Mrs. Alexander moved to Baltimore and spent the remainder of their very active lives close to the Bak family. Rabbi and Mrs. Bak returned to Israel in 1971, visiting his cousin, Miriam Middleman, his only relative who survived the Holocaust. Always meticulously groomed and dignified, Rabbi Bak made certain that his shoes were polished daily, even on the dusty streets of Tel Aviv.
In 1972, Shomrei Emunah was fortunate that Rabbi Bak agreed to serve as Rav for the budding congregation. Many young families soon engaged the services of the Kohen rabbi, from whom they redeemed their firstborn sons. For some fathers, he had been the Kohen at their own Pidyon Haben. Over the years, the Baks shared many personal events with the families of Shomrei Emunah. They assisted members at each juncture of the life cycle. We had births, bar and bat mitzvah celebrations, weddings, illnesses, and deaths.
On Purim 1977, they themselves experienced a personal tragedy for which all their life experience could not have prepared them. While dancing with his students, Reb Pinchas was nifter. His death has left an immense void for the Bak family. Yet his life left a great legacy, 7 children and scores of young men and women who came to know Yiddishkeit through his love of Torah and his love for his fellow Jew. Jewish history shows that after tragedy, there can still be simcha. Recently, David, the firstborn of Pinchas and Karen, became engaged, and daughter Tzipi Bak was recently married. Nomi Bak, the eldest of Yossi and Marilyn's 5 children, recently was married and was graduated from Stern College. Borough Park it wasn't, but Zev Friedman on a borough it was, when he delivered Shalach Manos for Moish and Henny's family. Rabbi and Mrs. Bak visited them and enjoyed a special sukkos in Yerushalayim.
Always interested in their congregants, the Baks took time to visit a former Shomrei Emunah member, Robert Vassell, who was a restaurateur in Yerushalayim. A golden moment to remember in the life of any rabbi is meeting the President of the United States. In 1978, Rabbi Bak was invited to the White House to meet President Jimmy Carter in honor of the 30th anniversary of the State of Israel.
Mrs. Bak, who returned to teaching professionally when Henny was 6 years old, is very active in the Agudat HaMorim, Hebrew Teachers Union. In 1986, she received advanced certification, the Hebrew Educator's License from the Board of Jewish Education. A lifelong student, she also studied tax preparation and worked in this field in the 1970s. Mrs. Bak's ties to the families of Shomrei Emunah are deep, and she has kept up her friendships over the years.
In 1986, under Rabbi Bak's leadership, Congregation Shomrei Emunah bought its present building and moved to larger quarters. Rabbi Pinchas Stoper of the Orthodox Union participated in the Chanukas Habayis festivities. Although he has been in the United States for 49 years, Rabbi Bak has never forgotten his link with Europe and with the survivors. During the 50s and 60s, Rabbi and Mrs. Bak sent hundreds of packages to the few remaining Jews of Vilna, enabling them to survive. Today, he still maintains correspondence with those he last saw as a young man. Now, all that remains of the Jewish presence in the area near Taragin is a memorial in Utyan to the 8,000 Jews who perished there.
Throughout the Bak's association with Shomrei Emunah, Rabbi Bak has stood for the voice of reason and harmony for the congregation. He and Mrs. Bak have good-naturedly and wholeheartedly joined in our simchas and even our shtus. But most importantly, Rabbi Bak is known for his lumdus. He is a Talmid Chacham of unique ability, a rabbi's rabbi, to whom many turn with their queries.
We at Shomrei Emunah have been most fortunate to have you learn with us, lead us, and love us. We sincerely thank you and Mrs. Bak for giving so much of yourselves to us and pray that Hashem keeps you both well for many years to come so that we may continue to be graced by your presence.